guys, it's Sarah, and today we are going to talk about all the books that I read in the month of July. I read 8 and 1 DNF. So it was a pretty good month. I think that's pretty good. And also read my favorite book of the year. And I think that's going to stay that way. I do not foresee anything else knocking this book off. Like, there's no way. But, all right, let's get into it. Okay, the first one that I read is a book from my summer TBR. Yay. And that is Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. This is a book that was sent to me from Melinda. And this one I listened to on audiobook actually because I did have immediate access to it, and it was something that I kind of wanted to take in that way. And it was narrated by Isabel Ruther, who did a great job. So this follows a plus-sized woman who is part of a fandom for this show that is on it. It's kind of like a Game of Thrones-y type of show. And she is part of the fandom to the point where she cosplays for it and is part of forums. She writes fan fiction, all these things. And so when you're in the environment of like, you know, a forum and stuff, you're pretty anonymous. You only share as much as, you know, you're willing to share. So she makes some connections, she makes some friendships. Of course, nobody knows each other's real names and all these things, but she forms this connection with another man, and they have, you know, this private message going on, and they're going back and forth. They become really good friends. It doesn't seem like anything more than that, but she ends up getting into a conversation, or she ends up being part of a conversation about her body because she chooses to share her outfit and go a little bit public with what she looks like. And she is plus size. So bring on the hate comments, right? Bring that on, because of course. And lo and behold, she becomes part of this, and she ends up getting into the middle of a conversation with the main actor from this show that she is a fandom of and that she writes fan fiction for. And he ends up defending her and asking her out on a date in front of everybody on Twitter. So she's taking this for, okay, this is a publicity stunt. He's just being nice, all these things, but she chooses to go. And so they go, they have this date, and they strike up this friendship. However, he's very attracted to her and makes that very known. They actually do start dating. A lot of people think it's just publicity and all that stuff. But unbeknownst to her, and we know this as readers, so this is not a spoiler, but he is the person that she's talking to on the forum as well, because he writes his own fan fiction for the show. He has to keep his identity very secret because of the fact that he's part of the show. It goes against his contract. He could get fired and, you know, sued and all these things. So he has to keep his identity quiet that way. So because of that, he literally can't tell anybody who he is, but he chooses to still do this and write under, you know, a different name and all that stuff. So it just kind of goes from there. You know, things start happening and all that kind of stuff. I thought this was just okay. The biggest problem I have with this was that it seemed very pro-April. And it was all about her. Marcus was just there. And yes, they were in a relationship, and you're seeing struggles and you're seeing things. But it just seemed like everything was there to serve April. And I don't know, it seemed like she was the center of the universe and everyone was just orbiting around her, including him. And I'm like, but he's part of this relationship too. So, and then, you know, there were things where she would get mad at him about certain things, but he didn't have all the information. So why are you mad at him? He didn't know half of the stuff that you're getting mad about, and you're mad at him. But he didn't know. So how is he supposed to react? Like, it was just one of those things. So I didn't love that. And also some of their fan fiction is sampled in here, and I didn't love that because it really took me out of the story. I didn't care about the fan fiction and the writing and all that. And then it went into little synopsises of, you know, fan fiction, this many likes, this many shares, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't care. So that kind of stuff just really took me out of the story. And so when that was happening, I kind of zoned out a little bit, and I just wasn't paying attention because I didn't care about the fan fiction. To me, that didn't mean anything. So gave it 3 stars. It was fine. Will I read more from this author? I don't think so. I don't think I would go out of my way to find more from her to read. But yeah. So, but it's done. Okay, the next one that I read is A Twisted Love Story. This is by Samantha Downing. And this one was a NetGalley book. So I got that knocked off. And this is an author that I want to read to zero. So this is her newest release. She's an author I want to read everything from. And I was able to read this one. So this follows Wes and Ivy. Wes and Ivy are in a very toxic relationship, and they have been on and off for 10 years. We open the book with them connecting again. So it's been a while. You know, they broke up. They've been very on and off for, like I said, 10 years. And they're off when the book opens, but then they quickly become on again. And you're seeing their relationship, how they react to each other, the things that they do. You're learning about things that happened in the past. And you're seeing people around them become slowly obsessed with them and their relationship and, you know, what's happening. Why are they together? Why are they together when they're so bad for each other? That type of thing. And some big things happen. That's all I'm going to say. And you kind of just watch things unfold and see how they react to certain things. This one definitely took turns left and right, and I wasn't really seeing anything coming, so I liked that. And they were just, it was just watching the drama. That's what it was. They were terrible people. Both of them were terrible people. And you're just sitting back and just eating popcorn and watching it all unfold in front of you. I didn't love the ending of this book. I'll say that. So that's why it's a 4-star instead of a 5. I didn't love the ending, but I did really enjoy it a lot. I really like Samantha Downing's writing. I like the way that she writes terrible characters. These people are terrible, but it's so much fun. So I really enjoyed it. Okay, the next one I read is a 5-star prediction, so I'm not going to give you my star rating on this one quite yet, and I won't tell you too much about my feelings. But I did read Carrie Sotos' Back. This is by Taylor Jenkins Reid, another author I would like to read to zero at some point. And I read Malibu Rising, which Carrie was a very side character. She was just kind of there in that book. And then this one is actually a feature of her as the main character. I listened to this one on audio. It does have a full cast, but I will say the main narrator is Stacey Gonzalez, and she was fantastic. There are other people who come in here and there, but it's very periodic. You know, it's mostly Stacey, but then there are other voices that come in because Carrie Soto is a tennis player, and you are hearing sports broadcasting that talk about her and the events that she's a part of and other tennis players. And so those are by different narrators. So it actually sounds like you're listening to a newscast, which was really cool. But yeah, so she's a tennis player. She is coming out of retirement because someone is about to break her world record and she is not having it. And she comes out of retirement to try to keep that going. And that's all I'm going to say. I will save the rest of my thoughts and feelings and more of the synopsis for my 5-star prediction follow-up, but I did read it. And then it happened. I read this book and I still cannot stop thinking about it. Okay. This Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I have an entire reading vlog reading this book. I love it with my whole heart. I love this book. Do I understand some of the criticisms that people have? Sure. I don't care. I loved this book. This book, if you haven't heard of it, okay. But this book follows a young girl named Violet who is going into a dragon riding academy. It is very dangerous. I mean, you could lose your life on the first day. Dangerous to be in this situation. She is making new friends. She's reconnecting with old friends. She is dealing with dragons and learning how to ride them. And it's terrifying. These dragons, it's definitely made known that these are dangerous beings and they don't care about you. They don't care about you. If you look at them funny, they will take you out. They don't care. They're dragons. They don't care about you. So it definitely gives you that feeling of danger when the dragons are around. And I loved it. She is also dealing with a mortal enemy that is someone that she has to encounter every single day. And he wants her dead for certain reasons. And Yep. You guys, I could not love this book more. I'm not kidding. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the characters, and I cannot wait for book 2. The ending of this book shook me, and it went places I wasn't expecting, and everything made sense. And the dragons, you guys, the dragons were everything. I am obsessed with this book. I'm one of those people. I have book 2 pre-ordered. November 8th cannot come fast enough. I will be picking up immediately when it's in my hands. It's my favorite book of the year, and I don't see that changing. All right, now we're gonna take a step down from the pedestal because the rest of my month was not that great. And I don't know, well, I was gonna say I don't know if it's because Fourth Wing was so good and I definitely had a book hangover, but the next few books that I read were not that great. I don't necessarily think it's because of that. I think it's because I just did not enjoy the books personally. I don't think that would have mattered when I read them. But this is how the rest of it goes. So that was my peak. So the first one that I read after that was Getaway Girls by Dee McDonald. This is one that we read for our Book 2 Besties reading retreat. It was a group read, and we had a travel theme for our retreat. So we decided to pick a road trip book. And this one follows 3 women who decide to go on a road trip across Europe. There's a very specific reason that they're going. And you just see their friendships really form because they don't know each other really, really well before they start going on this trip. But you definitely see them bond, and you see places that they go and things that they do and people they encounter. And I listened to this on audio as well. It was narrated by Jilly Bond. And I didn't really like it. I didn't like 2 of the main characters. One of them I liked, the other 2 I didn't really like that much. They just were making really not smart decisions, and I didn't understand why they were doing it. It was just one of those things. I was like, you are a grown woman. These are older women. These are like 60, 70-year-old women. So they know better. They've lived a life, and they were just making really dumb decisions. And I just had a hard time with that. And I never really felt connected to them as people. I never felt connected to their friendship. I just kind of was like, all right. It was just, I heard the story and I've forgotten a lot of it already. And yeah, so it wasn't that great. It was fine, but it just wasn't one that did it for me. So I gave it 2 stars. Okay. And then I did catch up with them for the month of July. So I will leave my vlog link down below as well, because I do have a reading vlog for that. So I'll do these quickly because I've already talked about these more in depth in those videos. But the last couple that I finished were Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. And I also listened to this. It is narrated by Brooke Bloomingdale. So I actually started reading it physically, but it took me a few days and I was just not really feeling it. So I was like, okay, I need to switch to audio. So I switched at about 20% or so. So this is one that not only do I have it from Book of the Month, I had it on my NetGalley list as well, because I did get a copy from NetGalley before this was released. And then I got it for Book of the Month and like all these things, right? I read a book from Ali Hazelwood before. I read The Love Hypothesis. And at the time I gave that book 5 stars. Further distance, further thinking about that book and the way it was written and the characters, I would definitely lower that to probably a 3, to be honest with you. I had a few things. I don't know if I was caught up in the hype when I read it. I don't know what it was, but I would not rate that a 5 right now at all. So I was a little trepidatious going into this one because I wasn't sure. Something is telling me, I don't know that this is the author for you, Sarah. And this book solidified that. This is not the author for me. I did not like our main female character, B. I did not like her at all. She's very smart. She is a neuroscientist, so she studies the brain. Very smart, right? But she acted like a ditz, and it just didn't seem right to me. I understand. I've heard, like that criticism from people. And then the rebuttal to that is there are people who are super book brain smart and then socially awkward. I understand that. 100% understand that. But it was stuff that was going on around her that was obvious that she just wasn't picking up on. And I didn't understand that part. I was like, honey, things are happening right in front of your face and you're basically choosing to ignore it. And I don't know. I just had such a problem with it. I also do not like her love scenes that she writes. I did not like them in the first book either. I did not like them in here. It almost turned her characters into different people and I didn't like it. I don't know. I just don't think that I like her writing. I don't like the way that she writes female characters and I just can't do it. I like the male characters, if that means anything. I liked Levi a lot, but I was like, come on, Levi, we can do better. So bad. Okay, done. I'm not going to read Allie Hazelwood anymore. I'm breaking up with her as an author, so I'm not going to continue reading her. So that's one thing I don't need to think about later on. But yeah, I give this one 2 stars. Okay, the last book that I finished, which I also read for Catch Up With on, is Velvet Was the Night by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This was another one I was a little trepidatious going in because I have read her before. I read Mexican Gothic and I didn't love it. And I just wanted to see, because I did pick this up from Book of the Month when it was an option and okay, let's give it a try. So this is another one that I did listen to on audio and it is narrated by Gisela Chipe and she did a great job narrating the book, but the book was just okay. I'll be honest, I don't even remember a whole lot about it. It was very much an action book. It is about a woman who ends up accidentally getting in the middle of a drug lord situation in 1970s in Mexico. And she doesn't mean to, but she does. She ends up being very nosy and her neighbor asks her for help with something and she gives her help and that kind of puts her in that situation. She's secretly thriving on it because she feels like her life is a little boring. She wants some more, action in it. And she definitely got that. A lot of the details I'm very fuzzy on. I'll say that. And I wasn't speeding through it by any means. When I was listening to it, I was paying attention. I was following it. But, even a week later, I'm like, I don't remember a ton of details. And I think that's just because I never felt connected to the story. I never felt like I was there in the middle of it and I was experiencing it with them. And I cared so much about these characters. I did not care. I don't even remember the main character's name. I don't even remember her name. And I felt like I was just listening to it and hearing a story. And then that was it. And I was like, okay. And then I immediately forgot about it. So I just never felt connected to it at all to the point where I cared. So I think this is another author that I'm going to not continue reading. I think I'm okay. I did give this one 3 stars. I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed Mexican Gothic. I'll say that. Mexican Gothic got way too weird for me. So I enjoyed this one a little bit more than that one, but it still wasn't enough to get me to want to pick up any more from her. So this is my last one. Okay, so I read My Darkest Prayer by S.A. Cosby. I buddy read this with Michelle. And this was a book that was given to me from Krista from our Christmas book exchange. And this is also another author that I would like to read to zero eventually. And I was very excited to pick this one up. So this one has recently had a new cover and it was re-released by a publisher. So this one in particular was self-published by him. And then a publisher picked this book up after he had some success with his other 2 books and has re-released this edition of it. So if you see it in the store, this is the edition you're going to see. This one's not being sold anymore. So I'm very happy to have this one. And I read this one physically because I wasn't sure if they changed anything, if they edited and went through and edited and did all that stuff. I wasn't sure about that. So I wanted to make sure I read what he wrote initially. Very happy I did. Okay. So this one is dark. It's dark, you guys. This follows a man named Nate and he is an ex-Marine. Sorry, he's a former Marine. That's the thing. He's a former Marine. There is no ex-Marine. Former Marine and former cop. And he is working now at a funeral home and helping his cousin with that. And you see some things happening. You see some things from the past happening. There is a priest who is killed in his town. And so he ends up kind of in the middle of the investigation and what's going on because some people come to him asking for his help because they don't feel like the police are doing enough. And he agrees with that. So he kind of takes on a little bit of a, I'm going to try to figure this out on the side type thing. Ooh, does he get in the middle of it? And ooh, is it bad? This is his signature dark, gritty, raw writing. I will say, if you read Razorblade Tears and loved it, it's the same type of feeling of his writing. Definitely violent. You get all those details. This one is much more sexual in nature, though. There are sex scenes. There are a lot of thoughts and outward expressions from men about women and their bodies. So there is that in here for sure. That has definitely not been present in his other works, but much more in here. So just fair warning going into that. It took me a little bit by surprise how much was sexual in here, which is fine. And this deals with huge corruption in the church. Like, oh my gosh, it's insane. So I loved it. I did give it 4 stars. And the reason I gave it 4 stars, which is interesting, is because I could tell it was self-published. I could tell his writing wasn't quite as tight as Razorblade Tears. But I wanted that. I wanted to read what he wrote without an editor and without, all that stuff. So I'm glad I read it. 4 stars, keeping it, loved it. And yeah. Okay, those are all the books that I finished. One book I DNF'd. And it makes me so sad. Is Really Good, actually, by Monica Heisey. This one just was not at all what I was thinking that it was going to be. This follows a woman who is mourning the loss of her marriage. Her marriage is ending, and she's mourning that, and I get that. It was just so depressing. I mean, it was just, she really feels hopeless about everything. And I understand that that's reality. I don't have this experience of mourning a marriage, so I can't speak to that. But I really just, I don't know. It just didn't sit right with me. And I got halfway through it. I mean, I was exactly 50% when I put it down and said, I can't do this anymore. This is another one that was very sexual, which again, sexuality and sexual stuff doesn't bother me at all. But this was, it was crude. And it didn't need to be that way. You can talk about sex in a very healthy way and as a really good experience, but this was just like, we'd be having a conversation and then something crude creeps in. And I'm like, why did you have to say something like that? It was just, I don't know. It really kind of just made me go, ooh. And therefore I wasn't enjoying it. I did not care about her because I was just like, oh my gosh, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I didn't want to be there for it. And it was narrated by Julia Whalen. I was listening to it. So I thought, Julia Whalen, perfect. Let's do it. Nope, even she could not save it for me. So yeah. So this is one that I read for Catch-Up-a-thon. I still counted it as read because I did read half of it and decided it wasn't for me. But yeah, this was a big disappointment because this was one of my most anticipated books of the year. Hey guys, those are all the books that I read in the month of July. Please let me know down below if you've read any of them. Let me know some of your thoughts as well. And I will see you guys again soon. Hope you have a great day. Bye.